My name is Pauline, and I come from Fortaleza in Brazil. Graciela from Manaus wrote to ask, how did Chiara live during the period that she was sick? How was she able to have the strength of God within her?
So you ask how Chiara lived when she was not well, and how did she have the strength to love God? Is that your question? God within her. It's like this, Jen. In every situation, in every circumstance, in every moment of our lives, God gives us a special strength, which is called actual grace. It's a special strength to live that particular moment of your life, whether it is difficult or easy, whether it's a beautiful moment or one when you are suffering. God gives you a special grace. All you have to do is stay in the present moment. So that's what Chiara did too. She always tried to love God, and she always did. But she had the strength to do it because God gave her the special grace to live that particular moment, to live it for everyone.
My name is Maria Gloria. When Chiara was sick, how was she able to love Jesus and everyone? How could she listen to our songs and meet people?
Well, Chiara was sick, but she wasn't sick enough to have to stay in bed. She had a hard time breathing, but she was able to get up and go around. She lived a normal life like us. She did things with us. She would take a ride in the car, and she would meet people. So even though she was sick, she would listen to the recordings of your songs, especially when she was in the car. She would play your album and listen to your songs. And sometimes she would listen to them at home, too. She would also have visitors, because she wasn't that sick that she had to stay in bed because of a high fever or anything. Sometimes she did have a fever, and sometimes she didn't have it at all. When she was up and about, she would be very happy to have people come and visit her. Once a family from Hollywood came. You know, that's where some actors live. This famous actor, with his wife and children, asked if they could see Chiara because they wanted to tell her that they would like to live the ideal of unity. So they asked Chiara for an appointment, and Chiara gave it to them. She was so happy to hear what they told her. So that's how it was. Sometimes she would also have important meetings, like with the Gen 4 Center and the Gen 3 Center, or with the volunteers or other groups of people, or important dignitaries like the Buddhists from the Japanese movement, Risho Kosekai. In other words, she always received people until a short time before going to the hospital.
My name is Maria Grazia. This is a question from Maria Chiara, who asked, how could Chiara love everyone if she was sick?
As I said before, Chiara wasn't always so sick that she had to stay in bed. She would have people come and visit, and she would listen to them. Many of them asked her important things, and she would try to answer. This made them very happy. They would leave the house and say, Chiara told us to do this or that. It's the answer we needed. It's exactly what we needed to hear. So do you understand, Jen? She always worked for the ideal of unity, let's say right up until the evening before Jesus took her to heaven with him.
Hello, Ellie. My name is Ana Clara, and I come from Italy. Aline from Belém in Brazil asks you, even though Chiara was sick, she always thought of others and not of herself. When Chiara was sick, did Chiara think of us, Gen 4?
She thought of others, and she also thought of the Gen 4. For example, when Christiane went to South America, Chiara followed her trip closely. She would say, so Christiane is going to meet the Gen 4 in Argentina, and so she prayed for them. She entrusted all of you to Jesus. She prayed that the meeting would go well, and she would look over the Gen 4 magazine and write a brief message for all the Gen 4 of the world. Since you are so quick to understand, she would only write a couple of sentences. But at a certain point she said, I don't have the strength to write something right now. Choose something I wrote in the past, because it's good for now, too. And now we see how important Chiara's words are, almost more than before. We realize how important they are. Then, when you had the Gen 4 congresses, she was always so happy. Sometimes I would come to those meetings, or Gis would. Chiara followed all that you were doing. Then she would listen to your songs, as we said before. So she always had you in her heart. I would say with great trust. She had a special love for the Gen 4.
My name is Rachel.
This is a question from Giordana, who wasn't able to come. She asks, how did Chiara live the last months of her life?
Well, she always met people, as I previously said, right up to the last moment of her life. She gave advice, she answered questions of people who would ask her about their problems. She always did this. But of course, Chiara also had a special love for Jesus, for doing the will of God, which she tried to do in every moment. For example, she had to do certain exercises that were hard for her to do, but she did them to do God's will, to love God. Since she had difficulty breathing, the doctor would tell her, "You have to do breathing exercises." Chiara, who was already very tired, would do exactly what she was told. We would see how she concentrated on doing those exercises, and she tried to do them out of love for God. Her love for Jesus went beyond everything. Then you can understand that she didn't always have an appetite. You know how it is when someone is sick. But out of love for Jesus, she would make a big effort to eat well, as best she could, because she knew she had to eat. So she tried to love Jesus and to love her neighbors. She would love those who came to visit her, those who asked something of her. We who lived with her in the Focolare tried to love Chiara, but Chiara almost always loved us more than we could love her.
Hello, Ellie. My name is Gabriela, and I come from Mariópolis, Janeta, in Brazil. This question comes from Laís from Belém. My name is Viola from Parma in Italy. Gabriela asks you, Chiara won over my heart and those of many Gen 4. How is she able to make herself so loved by everyone?
It's true, so many people loved Chiara. How was she able to do it? By being the first to love. She didn't wait for others to love her first. She was the first to begin. She would help one person, then listen to another. She would do many acts of love for this person, and then for that one, and then for the other one. People felt her love. They understood it, and so naturally they loved her back. And so little by little she was loved by many, many people.
My name is Maria Luce, and I come from Florence, Italy. Maria is from Korea, and she asks, how can we always be close to Chiara?
Well, I think that if we're close to Jesus, then we're close to Chiara, too.
Hello, Ellie. My name is Itziar, and I come from Spain. Hello, Ellie. My name is Chiara, and I am Italian. Itziar from Spain asks you, can you tell us about a difficult moment in Chiara's life, and what did she do to overcome it?
I don't know how much you know about Chiara's life, a little or a lot. I'll tell you something that comes to my mind right now. For example, you may know that during the war, Chiara's house was destroyed by the bombs. Her family had to spend the night outdoors in a place called Golden Drop, which was up on a hill in the woods outside of Trent. That night, Chiara felt God calling her, because her parents had decided to leave their house because it was too damaged to live in, and move to another town where they could live with friends or relatives. Chiara felt she had to stay in Trent. That meant she had to leave her family, her parents, her brother, her sisters, and stay in Trent all by herself. This was very hard for her to do because she loved her mom and dad very much and her brothers and sisters. But she felt in her heart, love conquers all. Love for God conquers all. She thought, the love I have for God must be stronger and greater than the love I have for my mom, my dad, my brothers, and my sisters. It must be stronger and greater. If I have to choose between my love for my family or my love for God must be stronger, and I must say yes to Him. Chiara felt God was asking her to choose Him, and that to follow God she had to leave her family. So she said her yes. The next morning she went to her dad and said, Dad, I feel I have to stay in Trent. Her father looked at her and understood and said, all right then, I give you my blessing. And with her father's blessing she stayed in Trent. Instead, her mom was a little upset about it. She said, what? How could you possibly think that? You're really cruel to let us go away alone like that. That's what her mom told her. So even though her mom didn't understand what she was doing, Chiara felt she had to love God more than her mom, more than her siblings, more than her dad. And so she stayed in Trent. And because she stayed, the Focolari was born. The whole movement was born. There was no movement before that. Nothing existed yet. And if Chiara hadn't taken that step, perhaps we wouldn't be here now. Not us, not you, Gen 4. The ideal of unity wouldn't have come to life. So sometimes God asks us to make these decisions that I would say are almost heroic. At a certain point, we all have to decide to do one thing or the other. Then another difficult moment was when Chiara really wanted to love God more. She had almost finished a special kind of high school which gave her certification to be a teacher. But she really wanted to go to college so that she could learn more about God. As she used to say, I want to learn more and more about God. And so she thought, maybe I can get to know God if I go to the Catholic University in Milan. I can learn everything about Him, and then I will love Him more and more. So she entered a competition for a scholarship, because her family was poor, you know, and so if she won, she could go to the Catholic University of Milan for free. However, she came in fourth, and only the first three got the scholarship with free tuition. Chiara was really disappointed and crying. She told her mom, look at this, just for this I lost. She was still crying when she felt a voice inside her heart telling her, I will be your teacher. It was Jesus telling her, I will tell you things that they don't even know at the university, even with all their knowledge, because I will be your teacher. All of a sudden, Chiara said, I felt reassured and happy. And probably right then the ideal of unity was born. It was like a new kind of knowledge of God and of His love that came into existence, something that never existed before. It became a new charism within the church.
My name is Valentina, and I come from Pisa in Italy. I wanted to ask, how is Chiara able to console all those who cry?
Well, first of all, Chiara used to listen a lot and try to console one person and then another, but it wasn't always easy. So she taught us the value of suffering. Suffering is not only something that makes us feel bad, but it's actually something that can be very important in our life. For example, Chiara used to tell us that Jesus could have chosen 1,000 ways to reconcile humankind with God. People had sinned. They had rebelled against God. You know this from the story of Adam and Eve and the whole Old Testament, don't you? At a certain point, God, who was love, saw that humanity, all of us, His children, couldn't make things right. He had sent prophets, He had sent saints, the people in the Old Testament, but even with the saints, nothing could be done. So He sent His very own Son to redeem us. You know that. Jesus could have done anything. He could have performed a miracle. As the Son of God, He could have done a number of things. But instead, what did He do? He died on the cross for us to save us. He chose suffering. In our faith, in our religion, suffering is very important. Suffering is not valued in other religions, only in ours. Jesus was the first one to tell us, suffering is not only something bad or negative. If you love it, it can become something positive that helps us to be united to God. It unites us to the Father. So people might complain about this or that suffering or about physical pain. You too. For example, if you break a bone, you say, oh, that hurts. But then you say, I offer it to you, Jesus. Because we are united with everyone in the world, our sufferings help to bring more good into the world, help to redeem the world. Chiara taught us the value of suffering. So then we shouldn't just sit there and complain about something, but like Jesus we should say, for you, Jesus, for you, God. Then you'll go ahead with greater courage and more certainty, knowing the value of suffering.
Hello, Ellie. My name is Alessandra. This question comes from Gaia. How did Chiara live her life?
Well, in a word, we can say that Chiara tried always to love God and to love us, and to love all the people around her. She was always an act of love for God or for her neighbor or for those around her. Chiara lived her life by always loving.
I am Monty from Mexico. This question is from Gloria, who isn't able to come. How did Chiara live with her companions the most important moments of her life?
The most important moments of her life? There were many important moments. The joy of having Jesus in the midst. You too have experienced it when you have Jesus in the midst with the other Gen 4 and at your meetings. We are all so happy. So also for Chiara and her companions, the discovery of Jesus in the midst was very important. Then other important moments in her life were, for example, when she went to the Bishop of Trent at the very beginning of the movement. She told him all that she was doing, how they lived the gospel, how they kept Jesus in the midst, how they lived in the Focolare house. The bishop told them, "Here is the hand of God." He confirmed that what Chiara was doing was right. And Chiara had a great desire for the church's approval, because Jesus had told Peter, "Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loosen on earth will be loosened in heaven." He said it in kind of a juridical language, but what he meant to say was that the church determines what is doctrinally right and what is wrong. So if Chiara went to the bishop and the bishop told him, "What you are doing is right, what you are doing is beautiful," then for Chiara it was one of the most important events of her life. When that occurred, the ideal of unity spread beyond the Diocese of Trent, all over Italy, and then throughout the world. Then Chiara met the Pope. She wanted the Pope to tell her that everything was approved, and if he wasn't happy with us, then it meant something had to be corrected. Both Pope John Paul II and the Pope before him, Pope Paul VI, gave Chiara their approval, their support, and they told her how happy they were with the movement, very happy. They encouraged her a lot, even for things that were perhaps new and extraordinary. For example, bishops are part of the Focolare movement. The Pope understood this reality well, because it's a spirit of unity, and it's so universal that everyone can live it. And so this gave Chiara great joy. They were moments of great joy, of deep joy, because they were a confirmation of her charism from the successors of Peter, which was something quite new in the Church. Perhaps we couldn't all understand it, but the popes, who had the special grace to approve it, did approve it. So much so that John Paul II almost drew from the spirituality of the ideal to write the apostolic letter called At the Beginning of the New Millennium. In this document, he states that the whole Church should live a communitarian spirituality, that is, unity. It seems he took it from Chiara's charism and applied it to the whole Church. So it was really a mutual exchange. The Pope who gave Chiara his approval, and Chiara who gave the Church her charism. This was one of Chiara's greatest joys. So this was your last question. They are one more beautiful than the next. Good then, I'm happy.